thank you for that warm welcome, Dr. Amanda. And I also want to thank for all the participants, every one of you, for taking off your beautiful 80-degree weather day and try to be here with us to help learn our stories, to help us make this country better. Because we are not in person, if it's okay with you to start out, I would like you to write, if you can, on the computer, why are you here today? Why you sacrifice your beautiful day, your 80-degree day, to be here with us? I'd like to know your answer. Because I know why you are here, and we'll tell you why we're here later. So go ahead and type your answer to the computer so we can read them in a little bit here. I want to know your answer because it is such a beautiful day and you could be anywhere and you choose to be with us here. And also, I like to know, because I've been doing this work for a long time, I want to know what white people think about the work that we're doing. Can you read some of them to me?
Yeah.
So we're going to read some of the answers, okay?
To learn and understand, to understand your experiences in the community. I want to learn more about anti-racism, to be a positive part of the lacrosse for everyone, to be able to walk in your shoes, because your stories are important to me, to stand witness to your racism. To support my mom. And I want to learn more about, I got to move over. Someone said, I love Dr. B and Lynette. Oh boy, I'm gonna stop reading, but other people can continue.
You can read a bit more. We have time.
Keep reading.
A little bit more. Yeah, that's time.
To know better, do better, be part of the community that cares. My wife is dark-skinned and I'm white. We have lived in La Crosse for 6 years and we want to learn more about our community and ourselves. To help be part of the future of change and know that there is sacrifice along the way, including missing the beautiful sun. To show my support for my friends B and Lynette, I want to learn how to interrupt racism by learning from your story. To hear your story and learn how to take action to improve our community. To be a better person and to make the world a better place for everyone.
Yes.
We want to hear your personal stories, to learn to be a better neighbor.
Good. Okay. So I'm so glad to hear some of those answers because sounds like a lot of you have the same goal and dream that we have. So we're going to be preaching to the choirs, hopefully. It's good to know that because I'm having battle fatigue for doing this work for so long, because I feel like white people don't care and white people don't hear, because this is not something new. This is something that has been going on for 400 years and racism is still here. And so I want to hear deep down inside why you here. Before I'm gonna tell you my story and share my pain, I just wanna know that it's gonna be worth it for you. It's gonna be worth it for me to tell our stories and to relive our pain for you. Sorry. So thank you for your answers. It helped me to energize me to continue to do this work, to make our country better. So just want to welcome all of you again. My name is B. Lowe. My professional name is Dr. B, as you may know. I run a natural health clinic for the past 23 years in the La Crosse area. So everybody knows me by Dr. B. I use he and him pronouns. I like to take a moment for us to remember and thank all those people of colors and white people that have fought social injustice for the past 400 years. Because if it wasn't for them, I would not have the American dream that I had when I came to America. If it wasn't for them, Lynette and I would not be a couple. because there were laws against interracial marriage that had been passed so that we can get married. And they fought that war for us. And because of the work they have done, we can do this Zooming, and we can talk about this openly and not worry about being jailed for this. So I want this moment to just thank all the people that have fought this war for us. And we are the next soldiers. And we will fight this war until our life is done. And my feeling is that if it's still here after 400 years, it will be here after we're all gone. So we need to do this work to make it better for the future generations. Lynette and I are here to share our bittersweet love story with you in hopes that our racist experiences will help convince you in your heart to have skin in the game. I say skin in the game because I had heard from white people that they do this work because they have skin in the game. I didn't understand that phrase, so I had to learn that, and that they have children that marry person of color, or they have adopt children of color. And so now they feel they have skin in the game. And so I'm hoping that you are here because you have skin in the game, not because you adopt somebody, but because you want a better world for all children, all God's children. That's why I'm doing this work, to convince you that you need your skin in the game to help us fight and dismantle white system racism in this country so that all people can have the American dream fully and fairly. I'm gonna let my wife introduce herself a little bit, and I'll come back and talk to you later.
Okay. So hi, and thank you again for being here. Thank you, Bea, for being willing to do this. I know that it's traumatic and hard. I'm Lynette Prieur Lowe. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a long-term resident of Onalaska, Wisconsin. My father grew up just 3 blocks south of where we currently live, Bea and I. So we're very connected to our beautiful lake Onalaska. And we always want to remember that we live on the lands of the Ho-Chunk people and that we have a responsibility to this land and to the people who cared for it for generations before us. I've been waking up white all my life, but I didn't realize it until I was an older adult. I'm so thankful for all the people in my life who have planted seeds, or I often talk about getting timed release capsules of medicine put into my heart to help me walk through the world more aware of the rigged and unjust systems that we live with. We'll be speaking for a bit, and we're going to leave plenty of time for questions and answers, I promise. So you can feel free to type the questions into the chat. Livy from the La Crosse Public Library will collect them from our chat and feed them back to us at the end of our presentation. We're so appreciative of the presenters who kicked off this really important series. And reminder, all of them have been recorded and are available for you to view as many times as you need to on the lacrossewakingupwhite.com website. Another plug, lacrossewakingupwhite.com website. The presentations have been amazing. The 3 who kicked it off, the 3 presentations, 4 people who kicked it off, set the groundwork. And we're looking forward to the presentations yet to come. Returning to Ourselves by Dr. Roger Coombe. There's a diversity and inclusion in theater panel that's coming up. I'm so looking forward to hearing Dr. Sutha talk about cultivating cultural empathy to overcome white supremacy thinking. Our dearest Shondell Spivey and dearest Jasmine Holland are going to talk about grassrooting in predominantly white communities. Dr. Erin Winkler, I haven't met yet, can't wait to hear, speak about how children learn about race and how adults can help. And then we wrap up with Reggie Jackson and Dr. Fran Kaplan coming back to help us in La Crosse, presenting racism as a public health crisis. The people working behind the scenes have done an awesome job. We're so excited to see what the upcoming presentations are. And Amanda, Tashira, Shamaya, and Dr. Ben laid an incredible foundation for our talk today. Like I said, please go back and review them if you missed anything. We decided to own it since the power is ours, and to speak our own truth and tell our own stories. And we thank all four of them for the work they have done to encourage us in the work that we need to do. So thank you to all four of you. So we've gone through lots of morphs of what this presentation was going to look like. We've had many ideas about how to do this presentation since we first talked about it many months ago. We thought about trying to incorporate stories from other interracial couples, and we talked with friends. We heard their difficult stories of how they have had to navigate the world, facing racism and white supremacy, and many of them mirrored our experiences. We hope today to honor their stories, and we thank each of them for sharing their experiences with us. And then we decided that the only stories we can really fully tell, the only stories we can fully own, are our own. So we're here to be vulnerable with you. I'm sure there will be more tears. Please honor our stories and learn with us. I'm going to set the stage. We come to you today with the power of our story. Many people think that a story is, well, just a story. But as Opal Tomaszewska reminded us at the recent YWCA Racial Justice Summit, we underestimate the power of stories, but we are led by them every day. We have so many stories and so many myths that uphold white body supremacy. Things that I remember being told all my life. If you work hard, you'll get ahead. And if you aren't, you must not be working hard enough if you're not making it. I was told the myth of meritocracy. I was taught that competition is more important than cooperation. I was taught that conflict is bad, and I'm struggling with that today. I avoid it at all costs, and I can't do that. I was taught not to be too emotional. Logic is better. I was told that there's such a thing as rugged individualism. There's a thing called the self-made man. I was told that you can pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. I was told that time is money. You can't waste time. You can't be late. There's so many more. And I encourage you to take your time to think about those stories that you have been told in your life that uphold white supremacy, white body supremacy. But we need to keep going. So to help replace some of these outright, or at least partially false and misguided stories of white superiority, we're here to share some of our stories. When we first heard that the Waking Up White collaboration was planning to host book chats and do big talks, Dr. B and I started thinking, well, how could we contribute? Dr. B, or as I will probably refer to him throughout, my honeybee or my love, has dedicated so much of his adult life to telling his story to help us as white people be better, more just human beings. He has expressed the toll that retelling these stories has had on him over the years. He has stepped in and out, mostly in, of the circle of telling his stories, because sometimes he stepped out because he's not seen the results in us white folks that he forever hopes for. So when the opportunity first came up to do the deep dives that Dr. Amanda talked about with Reggie Jackson and Dr. Fran back in September of 2019, he graciously said, "No thanks, not this time." But as the date for the deep dive drew near, one of our facilitators experienced a serious health event and needed someone to fill in. So yet again, Dr. B was asked by me, "Are you willing?" He said yes. And so we are here again tonight, asking B to share the often heartbreaking stories of his experiences with racism and white body supremacy in our community. We decided it might be good for me to set the stage for all of you to better hear what Dr. B is about to share. I'm a little embarrassed that we as white people need another white person to introduce that and set the stage. I think Debbie Irving is in the same boat, right? We needed to hear it from a white woman, a white person. Hopefully you'll be able to hear fully what B has to say tonight. So I want you to sit up, lean in and listen, because what you are about to hear could change your life. I often share when talking with strangers about my journey of waking up white, that I'm a little white girl from Onalaska, Wisconsin, who thought racism is a terrible thing, but I had no idea how I fit into the picture. Fast forward to the year that B and I started dating. I have a note to take a breath. It was a beautiful late summer day. The sun was shining and we were newly in love. We decided to head to the ice cream shop. That Can't Be Yogurt shop on La Crosse Street, to be exact. We walked in and an elderly gentleman looked at my love with utter and absolute hate in his eyes. Every time I retell the story, my voice cracks, even though it was over 31 years ago. It still hurts that much. It touches the depths of my soul in a way that racism had never touched me before. Each time I retell the story, I call this man a gentleman, not because his energy was anything like a gentle person, but because he could have been my grandpa. He reminded me of the people I descend from, and that breaks my heart. You see, this was the first time that I knowingly witnessed blatant racism right in front of my eyes. I have never had anyone look at me with this kind of hate. And I knew that the person he was directing his hate toward that day was one of the best people I had ever met. For the first time, I began to understand the reality of racism. Before this experience, I had read about racism, studied about it, but never felt it, never really knew it. Later that day, I asked B about it. He told me he didn't see the old man or his hateful glare. I asked, how could you not have seen it? And his answer was yet another opportunity for me to wake up to whiteness. B told me that if he noticed all the stares and glares from white people that he witnessed every day, that he wouldn't be able to survive. He wouldn't be able to keep going. Having the gift of B in my life helped me to see that I was going through the world in a different way than my loved one was. And that realization motivated me to work to change that. I've heard many white people share similar awakenings. It seems like one of the ways that we as white people enter this work is when we have a loved one who is not white. And then we can start to understand how the system is rigged to benefit us and harm them. We'll come back to how wrong we are in thinking that it doesn't also harm us, but I want you to stay with me for a bit. We have heard countless stories from white friends who have worked closely with students of color, or who have adopted a child who's a person of color, or whose child or sibling got married to a person of color, or had a grandchild be born who was biracial. And it was these relationships that opened their eyes, helped them to start to wake up white and work toward racial justice. This is often the way that we begin to wake up to the racism and white body supremacy that lives all around us and within us. So we started thinking, what about those in our community, in our audience, who don't yet have loved ones who are people of the global majority? Is there a way to invite you into the work, to help you see the realities of racism that lives here, the racism and white supremacy that lives within? We've had many conversations about how to help white folks to see that we all have skin in the game of ridding ourselves and our world of white body supremacy. So we decided together that we could offer you the opportunity to hear some of these stories. We offer you the opportunity to see the world through his eyes for the next not quite hour. We offer you the opportunity to welcome Dr. B and me as your new loved ones in your life, to hear his stories, our stories, and allow those stories to soften your soul, awaken your liver, and motivate you to live in a different way from this day forward. So, honey, are you ready to tell us some of your stories?
Yeah. I just want to say before that many times when we walk in the mall, you know, early marriages, there's lots of ugly looks from white folks up from small town and sit in the mall to watch people. And I just didn't tell you. There's so many looks that I can see they should be together. They hated us. They hated me. They didn't hate you. And so I just turn away and I didn't even tell you. There are many times where you want to hold my hands and I won't let you because I didn't want them to hate you. Because I know it will be worse. If we just walk next to each other, maybe they think we're just friends, you know? I was trying to protect you.
You know.
Anyway, so here's my story for everybody to learn. There's so much story, but because of the time we have, I'm just gonna touch on the surface a little bit for you, and then we want to have lots of time for you to ask questions so that we can talk to each other. And so we have plenty of time. We did this on purpose. We're doing this on purpose to save time. So here's how my story goes. The reason I'm in the USA here is because of, again, white supremacy power. That's how I got here. Let me tell you why. You heard about the Vietnam War. At that time in Laos, it was an independent country. With the Geneva Convention Agreement, no foreign countries were supposed to go into Laos and create wars. Well, guess what? The US government came into Laos called US aid. And in that, got them into the door. And then they start training the Hmong people, my father, in the mountain of Laos as soldiers. And they train them, and they want them to fight the North communists that come from the North Vietnam, travel through the border of Laos to South Vietnam. They hired the Hmong to fight and to block the North Vietnam in the northern part of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Illegally, they came and they brought airplanes, helicopters, tanks, guns, bullets. They trained Hmong people, Hmong children from age 9 to 50, how to fight. That's how we got involved. And after about 10 years, the US withdrew and they left us behind. They took about 2,000 people evacuation with them. That's it, top officers. We were left behind to defend for ourselves. The communists said we were enemies of communism because we helped the USA. We were being annihilated from top to bottom. We escaped in the jungle of Laos, my family. We escaped through the jungle where we tried to escape during the nighttime and sleeping and hide in the daytime. For 3 weeks in the jungle, and we sent people into town to bring us food, rice. I was about 5 and 6 years old. That was the first time I experienced hunger because there's nothing to eat. Maybe a little bowl of rice, that's it. And we could not start the fire in the daytime because the communists will see the smoke. We had to cook everything at night in the dark and we had to stand around the fire to block the fire so they cannot see. We cook the rice as soon as we can, we put out the fire, we eat in the cold. Because of that war, after the US withdrew, we had to escape to Thailand as refugees. In this whole process of escaping and being left behind, I lost my father. My mother is in Laos. My siblings are all dead. In this whole process, I am an orphan in a refugee camp in Thailand in 1975 with no parents. I had to go work. I had to go fishing and sell the fish on the street. I had to go pick up cotton for the Thai farmers and make some money. I didn't get to go to school. For 4.5 years in the refugee camp in Thailand, we struggled. We tried to survive. There was no food for us at first. We had to go hunt for food for ourselves. So the Thai didn't want us there anymore. They want us to leave their country. And because the US brought all this upon us, the US had to bring us to America. So that's how I got here. And again, you see white power, white supremacy. I don't think there's any accountability for the US government for going to Laos, for did this and cost thousands of lives. It's just happening in Afghanistan too, because of 3,000 Americans have died from September 11. We went to Afghanistan and it cost thousands and thousands and thousands of deaths. And when we're done, we just leave. And it kills so many people, disrupts so many people's lives over there. It's still happening today. So all because of white power, we think we can just do whatever and nobody hold us accountable. It's a big picture of all of this. You will see Afghanistan refugees have stories like I have, and they will have racism toward them too. You'll see. So this is not the end. This is just one story of mine. And there's many more already here with the Afghanistan people that we're gonna hear. And anyway, to go on. So when I came to the USA in 1979, I did not know how to read and write. I was illiterate in everything. I was 11 years old. We came to Missoula, Montana. 2 weeks later, my neighbor, who was a Hmong boy, I was like 11 years old. He must be like 12 or 13. He decided to take me to see my school. We walked to my school on the weekend and 2 white boys at the school beat us up. I had no idea. We don't even speak English. I don't know why they beat us up. I didn't do anything. That was my experience with the first white boy. I went to that school, didn't know anything, couldn't speak English. They didn't know how to deal with me. Nothing, didn't learn a thing. I'll just sit in the back and play toys. I thought coming to America gave me a second chance to make a life, because I'm the only survivor of my family with my mother-in-law. So it's a sweet, bitter life because I lost all my family. And yet here I am, had a chance to live for everybody and for myself. And to experience so much racism, it was really hard. Anyway, my years of going to school here, then I was put into ESL classes where the teachers tell us, no speak Hmong, only speak English. For 20 years, we go to school learning only speak English. And nothing about our language or culture were being taught in school. In that process of growing up for me, between 11 to 18, you lose a lot of stuff about your culture, your language, because it's not being taught. So I learned to be white. I learned the white language, the white system, the white ways. When I came to Longfellow in 1981, in La Crosse, I was the only Hmong student here. The first week of class, I was bullied. I had no idea. This white boy decided to bully me, push me into the wall, cut in front of me, bump into my food, say weird things to me. White student around me didn't say anything, didn't do anything. My teacher didn't say anything. My teacher saw all of this happening. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know what to do. I didn't speak English very good. I was the only Hmong student. The whole year at Longfellow, I had no friend. I didn't know any kids. I was all by myself. I ate by myself. I walked to school by myself. I walked back by myself. I don't know how I did it. I didn't go to any event at school, didn't know anything about it. The whole year. It was at that school that for the first time in my life, I hate myself. I hate being Hmong. I wish I was white. I wish I had blonde hair to be included, to be liked, to be wanted like everybody else. I had no friend, all by myself. I don't know how I did it. The kid that bullied me about a month. I hated school. I didn't want to go to school, but I didn't want to tell anybody. Finally, one day, I got so mad at him. After he said something stupid to me, I just went, this is a homeroom class, and the teacher heard this every day. He didn't say anything. Every day he picked on me. The teacher just sat there. So I went to his desk. I just flipped him as hard as I could. He's twice my size. I didn't care at that point after all this time. I just took him and just flipped him over on the floor. And the teacher sent us both to the principal's office. And we told him what happened, and I got released. And that whole day, he wanted to beat me up. I was scared. The whole day I didn't learn anything. I was just scared to death what I'm gonna do when 3 o'clock comes. How am I gonna get home? I didn't know what to do. But at the last hour, he asked me, do I know Bruce Lee? I said, yes, Bruce Lee's my cousin. He left me alone. Bruce Lee saved me. That was my first experience in lacrosse, middle school. When I got to university at UWL, my first semester there, I started having somebody write on my door, my dorm room, racist things. And we have an answer machine. Somebody keep calling and just say racist thing in my answer machine, just laugh. Like 4 or 5 of them white students just laugh at me. I said, how do they know my phone number? Why are they doing this? What have I done to them? I'm just here to get an education. It's going on for a while. So I start feeling, are they watching me? Are they across from the hall from me? Are they in the same dorm room as I am? What's going on? I got nervous, I got scared. I was anxiety. So I went to the campus police and I said, listen, somebody's doing this to me. Can you tap my phone and see if we can catch who it is? They said, sure. So we worked all this out, we tapped my phone. And 2 weeks later, this white cop called me and said, you don't have to worry about it anymore. I called the two boys that did this to you. And I talked to them and they were really sorry and they feel really bad and I let them go. So it's over now. I said, what? You have no right to decide this for me. This is me. This is not you. How could you just said that? I wasn't happy. So I went to the chancellor. I report all this to the chancellor. The chancellor sent me to the student dean office, Dr. Miyamoto, who was a Japanese American. He understood what I went through. So he took over and hold those 2 students accountable. So I went on to medical school and so on. So I'm very thankful that Dr. Miyamoto able to do that. When I look back, studied really hard. After 20 years of learning, got my high school degree, my bachelor degree, my master degree, my doctorate degree. I thought things will be better now. I learned the white ways and white system. But there's still a lot of racism toward me because they didn't know who I am. They just racist toward me regardless. In the street, in the restaurant, in the store, different places. So when I met my wife, I thought, this is wonderful. I married my wife, she's white. Maybe this will help get rid of the racism. It's not true. The racism still exists, but now it hurts my wife because she gets to experience it. In fact, some of the races are even worse because I'm with her, because I'm married to her. A lot of the white men did not like that. They don't like to see me with her. So like I said earlier, when we're together, I'm afraid to hold her hand. I don't want to put her in danger. I'm afraid to draw attention. I'm afraid to look at white people in the face. When we drive on the street, I'm afraid to look at white people on the side because I know what they would do. They'll do something stupid, say something stupid at me. So I keep my head down. And some of the story my wife told you, she experienced because of me. She didn't have any of this stuff before me. So even though I'm married to Lynette, I'm a US citizen, I've been here 40 some years, I learned the system, I still feel inferior. I still feel being treated like I don't belong here. Being treated, I'm a second-class citizen, being treated like I'm nobody. Even today, still happening. And so I've still been treated like invisible. When my wife and I go eat in a restaurant, the waitress don't look at me, they look at her. They ask her for the orders and everything. I'm right here. I don't understand why waitresses don't look at me. They look at my wife and say, they talk to my wife, they don't talk to me. It got to the point where many times when we go places, I let her go do all the work because I feel like they will pay attention to you. They'll treat you with respect. They won't treat me with respect. So you go and do this, you go and do that. I'll just sit in the car. Or you order for us, I just sit. It makes you feel like that. And it hurts when you think about them, you see that. We live in Unalaska, 2nd Avenue. I walk the streets, I bike the street, I run the street. And I tell you, I get all kinds of racist acts from white men driving by. They'll come right next to me and they go really fast. They step on the gas to scare me while I'm running or walking on the sidewalk. Or they'll drive by and yell at me, just like yell something really loud right next to me and drove off. They do that. And I have a brother and sister who's white, who live on this same street. They walk the street too. And I said, do you guys get these kind of experiences at all when you walk this street? Never. I said, wow, I get it on a regular basis. It's because of my skin. It's who I am. So they don't get it. I get it. When my wife and I walk on 2nd Street, we all hold hands. I said, no, don't hold hands. I don't want them to be mean to you. I don't want us to draw attention because something will happen. I mean, tell you what happened last month. I was biking on 2nd Avenue here. A white guy drove his big truck right next to me and he just turned around and said, what the fuck? And just drove away at me. It raised my blood pressure. It brought back all those memories, all those traumas. 2 months ago, I was jogging on 2nd Avenue. 2 white guys drove close to me and just stepped on the gas and just yelled really loud at me and just took off. Just to harass me. Do you white people get that when you walk the sidewalk and you bite the sidewalk? Do they do that to you? Why do white people do this thing? Do you know? Why are they so mean? This is why I call the bittersweet American dream. There's good and bad in it. But you know, white people don't get this stuff. Anyway, let me tell you another experience. When we came back to La Crosse after a couple of years, my wife has a full-time job at the university. I started my private practice because Gunderson and Mel Clinic would not hire me. They did not want to do any of my medicine. So I started to open my own practice. So after 2 years and so on, I went to Ultra Credit Union to take a loan to buy a house. And the lady, she wasn't busy. She was just standing in the hallway talking to her buddies. And I said, oh, hi, I'm here to see if I'm qualified for a loan. I would like to buy a house. she looked at me and she said, what do you do for a living? I told her I'm a doctor, I have a private practice. She said, how long have you been practicing? I said, 2 years. She said, you don't have a chance, 2 years. You need to be at least 5 years. But here's the long booklet, it's thick. Take it home, fill it out, and bring it back. But it's just low chance. You have to be at least 5 years in the practice. They just threw that at me. I came home, feel kind of disappointed at my wife. I said, no chance for a loan. Didn't even fill out the form. I just so discouraged how she treated me. It's not like she was busy. She's not busy. She could have took me in and talk and find out if I marry or not, if there's another source of income in my life. She didn't care about that. And when I read Debbie's book about the redlining, it just going ding, 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 ding. There it is. So sometime later, I asked my wife, you want to tell that story?
Yeah.
About
Should we go in again, right?
Yeah.
Should we try again?
With my wife this time, my bodyguard.
That's right. And we went to a bank downtown, and we walked in and asked about applying for a home mortgage. They took us back and had us sit down at one of their desks, and the woman helped us. She filled out all of the paperwork, and I think within a month we had a home loan.
She did all the application for us in 30 minutes in a computer. Yeah. She got treated really different the way I got treated, because she was white. She got money, the red line. She got the blue line.
And what I often say is, like the earning potential, like if a bank is really, like being honest about what they need, right? The earning potential that I had versus the earning potential that B had, B's was much higher than mine. So I had no right to get a loan. B had every right to get the loan.
Let me tell you another experience. The church people, they always want to come and knock on your door and tell you about God. They love to preach to you. They invite you to their churches and so on. So I started going to this church in Northside La Crosse. And I asked them if I can be in the assembly, in the membership with them. And they said, am I a Christian? I said, yes, I have taken Jesus into my heart. I'm saved. They didn't believe me. They want to hear my story again and again and again. So I told the elders my story, how I'm saved. I want to be in the assembly with them. They would not let me. They say, usually when you tell that you want to be in assembly, it takes them 2 weeks and they come back and tell you. They didn't tell me for a month. So I said, what's going on? Am I going to be in assembly or not? They say, they're not sure about your salvation. What you need to do is go into all the men in the church congregation and tell them your story of how Jesus saved you. And then those men will vouch for you. And then the elders will accept you. So I went and talked to all the men in the congregation, one by one, on my own time, in the weekend, on the weekdays, visit them at their home and spend like 30 to 40 minutes, tell them how Jesus saved me. It took me 6 months for them to say to the elders, we think B is saved. He can be in the assembly. During that time, there's 2 other members, white men, that went to church with me, asked to be in the assembly. In the membership, they got in. They didn't even have to go around and tell their story to all the elders and the men. And I said, wow. Even racism in God's country, God's family. I'm telling you, I have so many stories. I don't know what about me that people's ugliness comes out. I want you to tell the story about when we first moved here. We built the house about 12 years ago. And we saved all the firewood in the backyard. We had 2 piles of firewood back there. You want to tell that story?
Yeah, I think, talking about things that have happened right here on 2nd Avenue, the things right in our neighborhood where you're at home and hopefully wanting to feel safe and at home and welcome. And like B said, we had piles of fire for our fireplace. And in the middle of the night, we were awakened because the two different nights, a fire had been set in the wood pile. The first time it happened, it was further out from our house, and it was a little bit smaller. So we were able to put it out ourselves.
We caught it early.
Caught it early, yeah.
At midnight.
Woke up as it was starting. And so we were able to put it out ourselves. And then the second time that it happened, not right away, but a couple nights later, a bit later, it was the fire or the wood pile that was closer to our house. And that it had burned longer. And
the whole pile about
it was
20 feet was totally gone.
It was huge. It was yeah, the fire department had to come and put it out.
To call the fire department to come because the fire was so big. That's what woke us up.
Yeah. And just thinking about it happened how many years ago, and the trauma of that, waking up in the night, like thinking, okay, like what's happening, like outside, if there's, sounds and that kind of thing, and thinking about how that happens often for people of color, that danger, that feeling of insecurity. We know that we know who it was now. It was a neighbor who lived 2 houses away from us, just up from us. And we found that out because he came over to talk to me when I was out watering the lawn one day, and right after it happened. And he wanted to ask me if B was mad and if he was afraid. And he kept asking me questions about B. And I kept saying, well, yeah, like B's frustrated, B's upset. Yes, B's, scared. We both are. Like, this is, and then come to find out when the police visited him to talk about something else, he finally admitted that he had done it.
Our neighbor
2 houses up
did this. You didn't know your neighbor hated you so much, want to set your house on fire. So with that experience alone, you know how when you drive around, you walk around, you see people put firewood next to their house? I would never do that because of the trauma. I don't want any firewood next to my house because somebody could step down and it could burn my house down. And whenever I see a pile of firewood laying around, I remember that fire. That's the kind of trauma I have. When I go to banks, I remember how they treated me. When I go to stores, I remember how they ignored me, how they didn't think I was in line. They go to the people behind me to serve them and so on. All this happened all the time. When we go to a restaurant, people look at me, look at us, and the waitress let us sit so long, they won't come and serve us. All of those happen all the time. So this is really bad stuff. You might not want to hear this because you might want to say, this is not true of America.
You want to tell the story about our neighborhood?
No, you told that one. So we have a neighbor about 3 houses down. He's white. He's about 70 years old. And we've been here for like 10 years, right? And whenever I go out there, park my car, he will come out and just stare at me from his house. And I say, hi, I wave at him. He won't wave at me at all. So I thought, wait, what's going on? Why is he staring at me all that? He will stare at me until I leave my car. He would just stand there and stare at me, see what I'm gonna do. So one day you go and tell that story.
Yeah, we had construction on 2nd Avenue. And so our street was closed. So we were pulling a boat. And so we had parked, kind of just across from his house. And B was cleaning up the boat, and I had come back. B had dropped me off and I had come back up to meet B. And he came out of his house and stood, guard.
He came right to my face and looked at us.
And we were like, hello, and, about to reach our hand out to greet him and shake hands with him. And he started shouting at us, shouting at B. to go the F home. I mean, screaming over and over again. And we're, like B said, we were half a block from our house.
He didn't mean to go to this house.
Yeah.
He was telling me to go fucking my home in Laos. That's what he was telling me.
Yeah.
Looking me in the face and just keep staring at me and telling me, ignore Lynette the whole time.
Yeah.
Just tell me to go to F home.
Yeah. And just screaming it.
Following us.
Yeah. And we turned away and headed back toward our house. And he kept following us, and we made the decision not to go to our house, but instead to go north, because he wasn't going to, all the while him following us and just yelling at us to go the F home. And
so he won't leave us alone. So finally, we called the cop. When we dialed the cop on the cell phone, then he left us.
Yeah, then he stopped.
So we called the cop. We reported this to the cop. The cop went and talked to him. The cop came back and said, I talked to him. I told him he cannot do this to you anymore, blah, blah, blah. 2 months later, he sold his house. The white flight, he's gone. That's real. White flight is really real. So these are some of the stories I want to share with you. And what we think we should do is stop here and let's answer your questions and then see what you want to talk about so we can interact with each other, because we have so many stories and we don't want to keep going. It's exciting for you to hear, but it's kind of hurtful for us to tell this story, but we need to listen to you and see what you have to say. So Livy, you can ask the question or let us know the question, and we can discuss the question with everybody.
For sure, yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and then I can read it to B and Lynette.
Wait for it now.
So it is 5:07 right now. So we have well, maybe 2-3 hours, depending on how long you want to stay. Go ahead.
2-3 hours.
It's up to you. If you don't have any question, we can end early or we can tell you more stories.
Okay, it looks like I've got one. Someone asked, in all of your experiences, has anyone ever stepped in to help?
Has anyone ever stepped in to help, to challenge what's going on?
Not for me, no. People just look at it. Nope. That would have been nice, wouldn't it? Need a white savior, huh? To save me from white people. That would be nice.
I'm trying to think if I can think of any. We in the book chats, one of the questions was about like, how do I respond when the waitresses only talk to me? And I realized I don't know that I've ever really, challenged that directly. I've said, things indirectly, like, oh, well, be sitting here, or I've said things like that, but I've never like maybe had the courage or the brain pathway to challenge that and to say, like, why are you asking me a question when you're really asking my partner who's sitting across the table?
Mm-hmm.
And starting that conversation about why is that? Why are you doing that? And it woke me up the other day in the book chat to go, yeah, why haven't I done that? I know that's a little bit different than your question, Rebecca, but
this is us feeling invisible.
Mm-hmm.
And I have one of my cousins, she's married to a white guy, and she said the same thing. She feel invisible many times. They talk to her husband instead of talking to her too. White people do this. Why do white people do this? Do you know?
It looks like we've got another one. They said, thank you for being brave enough to share your stories. How do you deal with burnout when social justice work is a 24/7 job?
How do you deal with it?
How do you deal with social justice work when it's a 24/7 job?
Well, you know the way I look at it, we born, we lived, and we die. I'm still living. So I must be here for a reason. All my siblings died except for me. My father died except for me. I'm in America. Maybe I was sent here to do some work. That's how I look at it. So I need to do the work that I need to do until my day's done. And that's how I look at it. And I have to live. I have to do things. So like I said to Lynette, I have to ignore these things. Others keep going. And the things I can do something about, I do something about. The thing I can't, I just keep going. It's not easy. That's why I have a bittersweet American dream.
I think the 24/7 and not being burnt out, you know, I think that I've often, our relationship is very, we're very much a partnership. So like when I go somewhere, B's there. When B goes somewhere, I'm there. And I think that that's one of the things that I've had to learn a little bit, not to press all the time, to, you know, to do this work on my own at times, and not always ask B to go along, because it is hard and troubling and burdensome, and it's work that we as white people need to do. So that's one of the things that I was thinking about when that question came up.
Another thing that I also used to help me with that question was, I said to myself, listen, I went through the Vietnam War. I went to the refugee camp. I can go through white racism also. I am sent here to do this thing. I will do this thing. I'll tell my story for people to see. So people can see that there's ugliness in people, and we need to change that.
And for white people who are doing this work is, you know, that racism and white supremacy it's damaging and killing all of us. And I think when you start to realize how much damage this system is doing, it makes that burnout less likely, because it's like, no, we're fighting for our humanity. We're fighting for our souls. It's important work.
This is why I'm trying to understand racism in this country for 400 years. And I said, people of color have been speaking for all these years. Why is racism still here so big? I'm cautioning myself. I'm trying to understand white people. And I think the end solution is what I hear from white people. They're not in the game. So I'm saying, oh, so white people, again, it's about money, it's about health, power, it's about, does it affect me or not? Are they in the game? And they are not in the game because they are not being racist toward each other by white people. They don't understand the experience, the hate, and therefore they're not in the game. They don't understand. When will you be in the game so you know, white people? You know, the funny thing is that you might have white people that you know are really friendly to you and you think they're the nicest people, but they're not friendly to your person of color. You don't see that side of the other white people that you know. We know people like that. The people, Lynette know that white people are really nice and friendly. You don't think they're racist, and they're racist toward me. And it's like, whoa. And you don't see that side of people that they don't want to show you.
There's a few questions kind of on this pathway, but I guess I'll just read this one since it kind of embodies. They asked, since you have been together, do you think it's getting better or do you think it's getting worse?
I think certain circles that have known us, seen us, it's better. The circles are brand new. The racism is brand new. It's still there.
And definitely the, you know, sort of the resurgence or the
Donald Trump era.
ability to be vocal and not have repercussions and not have accountability. I think that racism and white supremacy are things that morph based on the conditions. And it survives and morphs in all kinds of ways. So when it was, you know, when Obama was the president, it was more hidden, it was more subtle, it was still there. And when a new president was elected, it was allowed to be shouted from the rooftops and no accountability, and it was out in the open, and people weren't ashamed to say racist and white supremacist things. So it's like, is it getting better? I worry that it changes, and we just think we've got, you know, we're sort of making progress somehow, and it changes and it shows up in a different way. Yeah.
I'll share one story with you. When I went to the church, there was a white brother in the church who, when he's with me, he talked nicely to me, like we're just good friends, right? And when I asked him I was gonna marry Lynette, what he thought of it, you know, he said to me, he said, I think that God made different people so they can marry each other. So he doesn't think Lynette and I should be married. I should be marrying Hmong, Lynette should be marrying white. That's what he's saying. And this is a white friend, a brother in the church. He was racist toward me and Lynette getting together.
Heard that from many, many, many people.
Yeah.
Someone asked, how do you choose to rise above all of the hate and not respond to these acts in the same manner with hate?
You want to answer that?
Well, I guess, you know, hate can't drive out hate. Darkness can't drive out darkness. There are definitely times when it's very hard.
I think you cry and then you get up and you keep going.
Yeah.
There's lots of hate out there. And hopefully you'll learn that you don't hate other people because it hurts when you are the one that being hated.
Yeah.
But you keep going, you don't stop. For me, I have learned to cope with it by not going to places that hates will come out. I don't go to bars. I don't go to gathering where there's a lot of white men. I don't go to things that I know white men will get crazy and they will say whatever they can when they're in the crowd. They feel like they have the crowd power. They just do whatever. So I learned to deal and cope with it and not go into places that will activate those. Or you try to do things in the open where there's a lot of people around. So maybe they feel a little bit ashamed and they won't do that.
And another thing that this question, I don't know if it gets at it exactly, but when it comes to racism and white supremacy, it's not only, you know, like the blatant haters, right? It's also those things that live within, right? It's also those things that, you know, that I need to challenge in myself. How does racism show up in me? How does white supremacy show up in me? And so when you're interacting with someone, it's almost like, am I looking in a mirror? Am I like, is there something that, you know, is in me that is in the person that's speaking? Are there things that, you know, we need to talk about, we need to tackle together, we need to, you know, not shy away from, because it's not only that, you know, blatant hate that is so oppressive. It's the classmate who doesn't say anything. It's the teacher who doesn't step in. It's the observer who doesn't, you know, who's not an upstander, and figuring out how to, you know, how to challenge, you know, what's around us as well as what's within us.
Sometimes I make excuses for people who hate that maybe they weren't born this way. Because when you look at babies don't hate people. They're raised this way. So the social structure, the family dynamic, the people they hang around with taught them to hate. So they give me an excuse to treat them and let them know that hopefully someday they will learn the right way. Maybe they're a pancake that can be flipped. So maybe someday they'll flip and learn their ways. But I think that hurt people. And so a lot of us learn how to be racist, learn to be mean and cruel to others. So I'm trying to think of, I wonder what that person's background is like, or what kind of music or movies or crowds that they hang around with that made them from an innocent little baby into a hateful person like that.
Well, and that's the thing is I think that's one of the reasons that looking into the stories that we've been taught and told about why people act the way that they do, or what, you know, what conditions are going on for people. And I think those stories we've been taught to, you know, we've been taught to hate. We've been taught to fear. We've been taught to worry about scarcity. We've been taught to fear other people. We've been taught to fear people who are different, people who, you know, all the way from, you know, in our churches, to our legal system, to our school system, to, I mean, like every institution is teaching white supremacy, and challenging that is a 24/7 job, both within ourselves and without.
So when we do this work, I always say this to white people. In America, white people create racism, but it's the people of color that has been worked the butt up to dismantle racism. And white people even claim that they can be an ally. And I said to white people in this audience, your ancestor and the system of whiteness create this mess. You clean it up. We are the allies to help you clean it up. Because we have been working so hard, and you've been sitting back as allies, a system that your system and whiteness continue to perpetuate. That's why racism is still here. That's why it's not going anywhere. It takes white people to clean up white people's mess, to make it better for all of us. And then we can end racism. That's why my little hope for this work that we're doing the last couple of years is that the more white people listen, the more I'm gonna tell white people, this is your job. You need to stop racism, erase white systemic racism, because only you can do this. It's like asking women to stop rape culture. It's the men, most of the men that do the raping. It needs men to stop raping women. It needs us to teach children, young boys, to treat women and girls with respect, so that the rape culture will stop by men training men to stop doing those things. It's not about a woman dressing her skirt so short or so long, or she put too much makeup on, or she should not go in the bar, or she should not go out late at night. It's not the woman's fault. She didn't decide to get raped. It's the man that raped her's fault. It's white people's fault for this racism to happen. white people, you need to help us stop racism. We are telling you our pain. We are the victim. If you love us, adopt our story, be in the game with us and turn this. It's not only in the game. When I think of the word in the game, it's not a game for us. It's life and death to us. A Black man could get killed for doing nothing, for selling cigarettes on the side of the road, could get killed. A Black man could get killed for having tail lights go out in his car. It's not a game, it's life and death. Maybe to white folks, it's a game too. You can just quit the game anytime you want and bet on the game when you want, huh? Well, that's not how it is with white racism. Thousands and thousands of people of color have been killed in this country because of racism, and probably hundreds today already. So I need white people to hear our painful story, or we're gonna get so fatigued of doing this work, we're gonna quit. And this country is not what it claimed to be, a melting pot and it's a beautiful country, the best country to live in the world. That's not true, that's all lies. It is a good country to live, but it could be better if racism wasn't here.
I just want to say there's a lot of people sharing their gratitude for both of you. And there's another question. Where do you find rest and hope and wholeness?
In books, in the work we're doing right now, that you will take this story and you will go and teach to your children, your grandchildren, and your circles of influences, and you'll read more books, and you help stop this. And when you see a white person kill a Black person like Mr. Floyd, that you get angry, you get mad, and you ask for the change of the police department system, and you don't blame Mr. Floyd for having drugs in his blood, or you don't blame Mr. Floyd for not going to the police car or resist arrest. There's no right to kill somebody like that. We all should be angry, whether Mr. Floyd is Black or white. When do white people feel the pain when people of color are being racist toward? We're all human beings. You all believe in God, white people, and you all preach about all children of God. Why is it that children of white people are more important than children of colored people to God? People of color to God.
I think you're absolutely right. The work is hard and painful. The Bonaro Overstreet's quote about the stubborn ounces of our weight, tipping the scale of justice. And the quote goes, "I don't think I ever thought my little efforts would tip those scales where justice hangs in the balance, but the few ounces that I do have, they're gonna go on the right side." And I think that's the important, it's the little bit of work that we do, the little efforts. I mean, I think about the folks that I'm looking at right now, like you have spheres of influence, you have loved ones, you have circles. You need to use that. You need to use the influence that you have to tip that scale where justice hangs in the balance.
One example that I like to share with you, when I see white people raise their children, they raise their children to say sorry, thank you, right? And be kind and be polite. Well, do the same thing with your children. Teach them not to hate other people. Teach them to not discriminate and not racist toward other people of color. That's all the same thing. You raise them that way when they're little and they understand that.
Dr. B and Lynette, thank you so very much for this. I hope you take a moment to look at all the comments in the chat section, because there's a lot of wonderful support for what you're having to say, and we just really appreciate the tenderness and the vulnerability of your stories. I think you had a wonderful impact on all of us here today. I'm sorry that those stories had to be told, but I appreciate that you were willing to share them.